How's everybody doing today? Jason with Toadstool Gardens, and today I'm going to be showing you exactly how I cross-pollinate peppers and the flowers to create new hybrids. Let's go check it out. Thank you for joining me on another video, everybody. We're going to be doing some cross-pollination today with some peppers. Maybe get a little bit of this cool variegation out of these scarlet variegateds into another variety that's not variegated. So, starting off, the tools you will need for this project, well, the ones that I use anyway. You are going to need some wedding favor bags so you can prevent cross-pollination. I like to use these little medical scissors for cutting branches and flowers. You're going to have your tweezers here. I like to use painter's tape for labeling, or not even labeling, but just marking which ones are crossbred. And then obviously Sharpie to write on the tape. Now, I did my first hybrid way back in 2003. Did my first, that was a pink gummy bear tomato, JS. I did my first pepper hybrid in 2008 with the orange ripple JS, and since 2008 I have done roughly 60. Probably saw some on the opening with all the pictures. I like to label all my creations JS. Gives it a little distinct of where it came from without people asking questions. So this whole thing starts about a week in advance when you want to pick out what varieties you want to maybe cross-pollinate. Now, a lot of times I'll cross-pollinate for looks. I'll cross-pollinate for, plant health, production, and just go from there. Now, it typically takes about 10 years or 10 seasons to completely grow out a new hybrid variety to where it's semi-stable. A lot of people will go with 10 years, yes, it's stable. But I've had varieties that are 14, 15 years old that are still throwing, different phenotypes every once in a while or slightly off. You'll get that. So about a week in advance, about a week ago, I picked out what plants and areas I wanted to do. Picked out my donors, which ones I wanted to pull the pollen from and put onto. So you want to bag the flowers. Now these are going to be your pollen flowers right here. Now the reason I do this is a lot of people, when they do crosses, they just yank a flower off of a plant that's open and that has open pollen, and then they'll just dabble it on the pistil of another plant. But the problem with that is if those flowers are already open and not protected, there's a good chance that there's already pollen from either that another plant by it, or an insect has landed on there and dropped pollen from a different variety onto that flower. Otherwise, if it's already open and you bring it to another one, there's a good chance that it's already gonna, you know, it's already gonna be pollinated. Otherwise, if you're looking for your female side, or the one you're gonna use for the female plant, you want to look for flowers just like that. They're about a day from opening, maybe 2. You don't want to go much smaller than that, because then the pistil, the little receptor that takes the pollen, will not be advanced enough in life to fully collect everything. We got a couple more flowers down there, but these are going to be our donor flowers, and we're going to come over here and we're going to cross-pollinate this cayenne pepper. I think it's a golden cayenne. And we're probably going to find another variety, maybe these, Mr. Tiger fell down, these Amazon raisins. Put our protector back up there, if he stays. And we got some popcorn habanero over here, but I couldn't find a flower that, well, that one might work, that was large enough to do any crossing. But alright, I'll get the camera set up and viewed in, and I'll show you guys how I do this. Alright, so I identified my plant, and by viewing right here, you'll see a nice balloon flower right there ready to go. That's what you're looking for. See, it's in the shape of balloon. It might be a little more round on a different variety. These, you know, just look for something that looks like it's about a day out from opening. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim back the leaves right around the flower I'm going to use for my mother plant, or my mother flower. Now, I'm basically trimming all this out just so I have a little bit of room to work. This is not going to hurt the plant as long as you leave plenty of leaves on the same stem. So this is the same stem all the way out. We've got plenty of leaves, plenty of sun leaves. I'm going to take this big one off. But ideal temperature to be doing this in is between 70 and 80 degrees, just so the plant is not going to be stressed at all, you know, pretty much at all, as long as it's happy with moisture and nutrients, and it's going to concentrate on growing that flower and growing that hybrid. All right, so we got a nice, pretty decent sized working area. Move this over a hair, and then I'll view in. And hopefully, I'm gonna have to back out a hair here. All right, now this is the part that is a little tricky. You want to start with taking off these petals all the way around, but you have to be super careful that you don't bump the pistil in the middle, because it breaks off extremely easily. And once that pistil breaks off, then it's over. You got to start over again. So start at the top and just kind of peel it back. You also have to be very careful. You don't want to break these pollen sacs open on the inside, because then, even though there's not a ton of pollen in it right now, these little pollen sacs can still pollinate the flower that we're working on. And once it's got pollen on it, it's gonna start growing, regardless of its pollen from a different variety to make the hybrid, or pollen from itself. But if it starts growing pollen from itself, then it's not going to be a hybrid, obviously. Ooh, I bumped it pretty good on that one. Now you can see what's left here is, hopefully you can see that pretty well, these little pollen sacs. That's what you got to be really careful not to break, because if you do, even if you bump them hard, you can see there's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of pollen on them now. So what you want to do is just kind of peel those down. Now, you might have even seen that one of those pollen sacs just broke open and a little bit of pollen came out. So there's a good chance that our little pistil just got pollinated. But the flower wasn't open, so the pollen might not have been long enough along in age to do anything. Okay, you see that? Now we got the flower pretty much dissected, and we got the pistil right in the middle. So we're going to come over here and we're going to take off our bag that has the protected pollen donor in it, and we'll bring it back over to this one. Okay, so we got our donor flower. You can see that the pollen sacs are open and there's actively pollen on it. So this is another tricky part. You gotta be really careful not to wreck that pistil when you rub that pollen on it. Be super duper gentle. Now what I like to do is after I use one, I like to go back and find another bagged flower from the donor, the pollen donor. So I grabbed another one here. Now this is off the same plant, but a different flower. Very gently touch that pollen to the flower. Now, immediately after you cross-pollinate that, what I like to do is these big leaves on the outside, I like to trim them off just at the bottom of the leaf so I have a nice piece of stem left to help support my pollination bag. You can see I got two nice pieces of stem right there. You can even go further and take a little bit more of this off, but what you want to do is immediately after you cross-pollinate it, you want to put that bag on there so an insect can't come along and re-pollinate it. So now we have our pollination bag on. There's our flower right there with our pistil sticking up high in the air, very proud because he just got pollinated. And so this will be a scarlet variegated and golden cayenne hybrid if it takes. Now when you're looking at your bagged flower, now if the flower completely falls off of the stem, then obviously it didn't get pollinated by either side. But what you want to look for is like a little tiny pepper like that coming through, or even right here is a better example. You can see it's just about ready to shed the flower. You pull that flower off and there's your little pepper. Now just because it grows a pepper doesn't mean it's your hybrid. It's a shot in the dark if it's going to take your new pollen or if it's going to take its original pollen. Most of the time, it's going to be pretty good. But if you get a pepper that looks very similar in looks, taste, plant looks, as the one you grew it on, your cross-pollination probably didn't take, because you know the five differences in pepper varieties. I think there's five, maybe six, five. You know, different varieties are gonna, or species are gonna cross-pollinate much easier with, you know, the ones that they're in the same family. You're still gonna be able to cross, because I mean I've done it out of family, but it's usually a little more difficult. Now, most of the time, if I don't get a cool looking pepper after stage, you know, F4 or 5, I'll just toss the variety, because if it looks, grows, and tastes just like, you know, something I've already grown in the last 25 years, then I don't feel a need to keep it. I've probably thrown away over 1,000 varieties in the last 25 years that I've been doing this. 20 years. But let's maybe find a couple more varieties and do another one. All right, we got one of my other new ones, Deathclaw JS, and we have a whole bunch of excellent candidate flowers to be mothers. So I found this melting naga plant that was flowered from about 2 weeks ago, or bagged, I mean, and it looks like we got one open flower on there that we're gonna take some pollen from. That looks like it's been open a few days. So I'll get the camera set back up, and we'll cross that melting naga JS with the Deathclaw JS. Maybe we can get a cool Deathclaw JS chocolate. All right, this is the one we're gonna pull apart. Start in the front, pull those leaves back, or those flower petals backwards. Trying not to, yeah, this one looks like it's a little closer. I can actually see pollen dust on those pollen sacs. Remember to be really careful that you don't burst those pollen sacs, and you don't break that pistil off. Move this up a hair. You want to pull those pollen sacs off backwards. It's probably not even a bad idea to wipe your tweezer clean, just in case you break one. Okay, we've got our flower taken apart and ready to go. So I'm going to come down here and grab the flower off those melting nagas, and there she is. You can see this is a little more blue inside than the other one. And we're going to go ahead and touch that pistil just very gently in between those pollen sacs. Very, very gently, because if you move or bend that pistil, it will break right off. Got one there. I don't think I have another one, so I'm going to turn this same flower around and get the pollen on the other two, or off of the other two pollen sacs. Now it's good to put it on the end of the pistil, it's good to put it all around, but the end is where it's gonna usually catch it, but I like to put it all around. So we've got our cross pollination done on this one. So we're gonna go ahead, and since this plant has so many flowers, you can see a bunch on the top too, I'm just gonna go ahead, so I have some stability, is I'm gonna cut that big branch off right there, and I'm gonna cut these two flowers and leaf there, and cut all that off right there, so I have a nice big area for my pollinated flower to not have to compete with leaves or other flowers. Go ahead and put our bag on. Now it's protected from, pretty much protected from any other insects that are gonna, you know, try to land on there and cross-pollinate it. So there you have it. That's pretty much how I've done it for the past 20 years. That's how I create all my hybrids. Just remember, it takes a long time to grow those hybrids out, and you even as you're growing them out, you wanna bag flowers so they don't get cross-pollinated, so it'll grow a true strain of that new hybrid once it's old enough. So after your cross-pollinated pepper starts growing, starts getting a little pod on it like this or like this, what I like to do is I go ahead and I'll strip that down the middle and write what it's crossed with right here. And there we go. We got it labeled. Golden Cayenne. Now when those seeds come out, that'll be the F1, and you want to keep growing it every single year. Isolate those flowers so they grow true, and grow those varieties out, you know, so they grow true, and your new hybrid will be a success, and it won't cross-pollinate with something else in your garden, because peppers cross-pollinate extremely easy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Comment too. Tell me, do you guys cross-pollinate peppers, or do you just enjoy watching and growing them? So thanks for joining me on another video where I taught you all about cross-pollination and how to do it on pepper plants. Jason with Toadstool Gardens. Until next time, happy growing.